Hello, my friends. So this is the second video of the series, Heal from Within. And this topic is about fight or flight. Most of us have heard the term fight or flight before, but a lot of us don't really know exactly what it is, what causes it, and what damage it really does to us. So we all have an autonomic nervous system, and that is what takes care of all of the functions of the body that we don't have a voluntary action in doing. For instance, our breathing. We're not constantly saying, okay, I have to take a breath now. No, our body knows it's an innate function that we just do just by being alive. So we're naturally breathing in and breathing out without even thinking about it. And it's the same thing with our blood circulating. We're not saying, okay, I'm going to circulate my blood now. No, we know that our blood just circulates. And all of this is happening behind the scenes without our active involvement. And it's happening because of the autonomic nervous system is behind the scenes doing all this stuff. Now, the autonomic nervous system has two different parts. One is the sympathetic nervous system, and one is the parasympathetic nervous system. As soon as we feel threatened, we go into this innate reaction, and that causes our brain to send a signal to the amygdala, which then turns on the sympathetic portion of our autonomic nervous system. This sympathetic portion sends orders then to protect ourselves. It sends orders to the rest of our body to slow down the blood flow to other areas of the body and to shut down certain parts of the brain. And those parts of the brain that are shut down are the parts that we use for creating, for imagination, for deep thinking. And instead, we are only mono-focused on this threat that we're perceiving in front of us. It also shuts down the blood flow to certain areas of the body that need the blood to function properly. But in order for more blood to be flowing to our limbs, to be able to run if we need to run, or to fight if we need to fight. And so when we get put into that state of fight or flight, our body reacts differently, our mind reacts differently. A signal gets sent to the brain to start releasing cortisol into the body. And we know that an overproduction of cortisol creates inflammation in the body. And we are also aware that inflammation is the number one cause for disease and illness in the body. So it makes so much sense then. The more that we are in a state of fight or flight, the more dysfunction we are creating in the body. Now, the thing is, this fight or flight mechanism was extremely helpful to us back in the days when we had a lot to protect ourselves from, when there were predators that were coming after us and we had to save ourselves. However, in today's day and age, there isn't so much of that. And yet, we still continue to perceive things as threats, even though it's not a real threat. It's not like we're getting attacked in this very moment. For instance, let's just say the phone's ringing and I know who's calling and I don't want to speak to this person. It could send me into a state of fight or flight. It could make me feel like, oh no, this is dangerous. This is something that I have to protect myself from. And just that phone ringing, or just the thought of me answering the phone and having to deal with this person could cause my body to react that way. So now that you understand that when our body goes into this state of fight or flight, it causes a lot of things to happen in the body that is not designed to be a long-term state of affairs. This fight or flight mechanism is something that all mammals have. It was only meant for a short-term threat to get us away or to save ourselves from this short-term threat. And then after that threat is over, then for us to go back into our relaxed state of being, which is the parasympathetic nervous system then gets turned on. When the sympathetic gets turned off because we're no longer needing to be in that state of fight or flight, of protecting ourselves, then our parasympathetic nervous system gets turned back on, and we can then adjust accordingly. Our body and our brain starts to function the way that it is supposed to. The thing is that the body doesn't know the difference between a real threat in our 3D environment and in our real life environment or a thought that we're having. And most of us are consumed with thoughts constantly. And the majority of these thoughts are negative and repetitive. And so the majority of humans are walking around every single day in a constant state of fight or flight because we're constantly focusing on what we have to protect ourselves from. It could look like a fear of going into a meeting later today, a fear of not getting accomplished all that I need to get accomplished. It could look like my fear of what people are going to think of me when I arrive at this social gathering that I'm afraid to present myself at. It could be thoughts of the past. It could be replaying episodes of maybe an argument that we had yesterday with a family member, or it could be replaying an embarrassing situation that we had where we were really feeling very judged, and replaying those scenarios in our head, in our mind, creates the fight or flight to turn on, just as if these things were happening in our present moment right now. As I'm sure you can imagine, then, the majority of people are walking around in a state of fight or flight with their mind mono-focused on whatever it is that we're perceiving as being the threat at the moment, and which that takes us out of the being creative in our life. Instead, that causes us to react, to stay in a reactive state. And we're constantly looking around like, what do I have to protect myself from? What in the world is going to cause me to feel unsafe so that I can protect myself from this and feel safe again? So we're constantly living in this state of reacting to all of these perceived threats in our life. It causes the cortisol to be flowing through our bodies. It causes us to be monofocused and not to be using our full brain, the parts especially that that allow us to think out of the box and to create new things in our life. And it causes dysfunction in the body because it causes our blood to stop flowing to the areas that we really need it to repair our bodies and heal our bodies. And instead, we're constantly in this state of needing to protect ourselves. And it keeps our blood only flowing to the areas that fight or flight keeps us in, which is in order to escape. So knowing this, let's talk about what types of emotions can cause us to live in a state of fight or flight, because most of us think that it means that we have to be in the state of really fearing for our life or feeling really stressed out. And it really isn't true. We can be in a state of fight or flight from just the thought about, how am I going to pay my bills this month? Am I going to be able to make ends meet? And am I going to be able to put food on the table? Or thoughts about, oh my gosh, I have this new symptom. What does it mean? Does it mean I'm getting worse? Does it mean that I'm not going to heal? And of course, we can also get into a state of fight or flight anytime we're out and about in the world, whenever we're feeling judged or whenever we're feeling like we're less than or not good enough. These perceptions that we have in our mind and the related scenarios that we're telling ourselves or that we're envisioning, having anxiety about going to the beach with the family, but not knowing how it's all going to go. Are you someone who gets anxious if you don't know how everything is all going to play out? Are you someone who has a really hard time just going with the flow because you need to know that everything is going to work out okay? You need to know exactly how it's all going to go, what time everyone's going to get there, who's going to be there, and how everyone's going to be acting, or what you're supposed to wear. Like, you literally have to know it all in order to be okay going somewhere or doing something. And this is the way that many of us are living our lives, constantly judging, constantly looking out for what we have to protect ourselves from, whether it be a real threat or a perceived threat. So now that we know that by being in a state of fight or flight, which many of us can attribute to thoughts in the head, or going to work every day feeling unsafe, or doing something each day that we are afraid of doing. If let's say you're going through a health challenge that limits you in your abilities, you know, even just the idea of how am I going to get down the stairs today without falling, that could cause you to be in a state of fight or flight. Now, let's talk about people who are experiencing health challenges. Are you able to remember how you were feeling before your health challenge? Were you in a state of worrying or anxiety or fear for the future or resentment or blame for the past, even blaming yourself? Are you in a relationship where there's a lot of conflict, or in a family that there's a lot of judgment or arguing going on? There are so many things in our life that can cause us to live in a state of fight or flight that it almost seems normal for us. It feels like this is the only choice we have. Like there's no other way of being. This is my reality, and this is how I respond to it. And that's just the way it is. But that's not true. That's what we've been believing. And it really isn't true. So when we recognize that we have another choice, that we actually can bring ourselves to a place of calm, even in the midst of things, when things are really happening, but especially when we're only thinking about something, we don't have to continue to let ourselves focus on the thing that causes us to feel a low vibration emotion, which is what they all are. So let's name some low vibration emotions. Are you able to relate to living in a state of any of these emotions on a regular basis, such as anger, fear, worry, self-doubt, jealousy, constantly comparing to other people, feeling like a burden, guilt, resentment, blame, sadness, feelings of being not good enough or unworthy, feeling unloved or unvalued, feelings of depression? All of these are low vibration emotions that we do not have to continue to live in, because that does cause us to live in this state of stress, to live in a state of fight or flight. So now that we understand that just simply by constantly reacting to our thoughts, to our experiences and what they mean to us, and when we live in that state of feeling any of these low vibration emotions that cause us to then live in a state of fight or flight, we don't have to continue to do that. That could really be the main trigger as to why we have the health challenge that we have. And the beautiful thing is that if our thoughts can cause us to get sick and cause dysfunction or conditions in the body that we don't want, our thoughts can also cause us to get well and to heal ourselves. We can teach ourselves how to put ourselves into the parasympathetic, how to turn on the parasympathetic nervous system instead of the sympathetic, how to retrain the way that we respond to thoughts as well as triggers in our real physical 3D life. We can reteach ourselves to no longer continue to react the way that we've been reacting. And what if this is the inner work that is needed in order to heal ourselves? Well, I'm here to tell you that that's exactly how I healed myself. I changed my state of being. I changed my thoughts and my emotions, which equal our state of being. And that creates the energy that we're constantly living in. We are 99.9% energy. Even though we look very physical, we look very solid, science has proven that we're all energy. So the vibration that we are emanating at every single moment does dictate our reality. The frequency of our energy is what determines our 3D reality, including our body. So if there's any area that you're not happy about in your life, You can change it by changing your energy. We must change our frequency. We must change the energy within our bodies and how we're responding to things, how we're perceiving things in order to heal ourselves. Because when we change within, then it changes our reality without. There's an expression, as within, so without. That's exactly what it means. We must first change within in order to see a change on the exterior of our life, including our health. So I'm going to now give you one way. We're going to get deeper into this during some of our other videos, but I'm going to show you right now one way that you can start practicing right now to create more awareness around how often you're in the state of fight or flight, because that's what needs to happen first. So before we can actually change the way that we've been being and our energy, we have to become aware of how often we have been living in a state of fight or flight. A way to start to become more aware is to practice bringing yourself to the present moment. When we bring ourselves to the present, we are separate from our thoughts. We're separating ourselves because whatever we give our attention to, whatever we're focusing on, that is what we're giving our energy to. We become what we put our attention on, especially in our thoughts. We become that thought. So when we're thinking the thought of, oh my gosh, what does this new symptom mean? Oh my gosh, it must mean that I'm not healing myself. And we start generating that fear. We become in a state of fight or flight from that thought alone. So when we're experiencing that, back in the day when we had something to run from, we were using that extra energy that adrenaline causes us when we're in a state of fight or flight. It creates this extra burst of energy that is supposed to be used in order to get away or fight from this threat. But when we really don't have a physical threat that we're running from or fighting, then what happens to that burst of energy? Some of this energy gets fed back to the mind, which then creates more thoughts. It's like a vicious cycle, creates more thoughts that mean the same thing. And we continue to get ourselves even more upset about it, because then what else can that mean? Oh, that means that I'm going to be, I'm not going to heal myself. That means I'm going to leave my loved ones without me, and I'm not going to be able to do this. I'm not going to be able to do that. And then I'm going to, all of the thoughts that wind up causing racing thoughts in our mind that puts us in this state of almost like we're going through it right now. That's what some of the energy winds up doing, is going back into our brain, causing our brain to feed us more of those thoughts that are in alignment with that fear. Then the rest of that energy causes our brain to release the cortisol in order to create that inflammation in the body, which we know causes disease. And then what also happens is the more that we're in a state of fight or flight and the cortisol is being distributed through the body, our brain starts to separate as well. Our brain stops working together. It starts separating. And that means that the message that the brain is now sending through the spinal cord to the rest of our body, to all of our organs and tissues and cells, is now a staticky signal. It's no longer speaking coherently to the rest of our body. That staticky signal is now causing dysfunction in the body. In my case, it caused my antibodies to no longer recognize the nerves in my body, and it attacked them as though they were invaders. And that caused me to be paralyzed and to no longer feel or be able to use my legs or my feet. Each one of us, like I said, is very different, so it could affect us all very differently. However, just knowing that this is the root cause, it means that we can all heal ourselves. Just like I did, you can do it too. And so I'm going to show you now, just to get started, to start your practice. This is the way that I do it myself. I'll give you an example. I sometimes do still get into a fight or flight state when I have to speak in front of large groups of people. And I know that this happens because I see it as a threat. I get very scared, that I'm imagining, and this is like an old conditioned program of when I was bullied as a child. And so I'm imagining, me not saying the right thing or speaking the right way, or, doing something that might embarrass myself. And so I'm constantly reacting to this conditioned program under the surface that's worried about being judged, or what people are going to think of me. But now that I'm aware of it, so that's why it's so important that awareness is key. Once we become aware of it, then we can do something about it. So the first step is to create the awareness around it. I'm going to share with you some signs that your body might be giving you when you're in a state of fight or flight, so that you don't have to continue to just think that this is just the way that it has to be. This is my body, the way that it's always been. It doesn't have to be that way. So as soon as you become aware that something is happening in your environment or in your mind that's causing you to feel a sense of constriction in the body. For instance, when we're feeling the state of fight or flight, many times our muscles contract and we start to feel a tightness or stiffness in our bodies. Our heartbeat can get more rapid. We also can notice a difference in our breathing. Our breathing can start to become really shallow, and breathing, more frequent and rapid breathing. And all of these are signs that we are in a state of fight or flight. We're feeling those low vibration emotions. And so when we become aware of it, that is when that's go time to not continue to just think that, continue your focus on the fear. Instead, bring your attention to the present moment. You can focus on your breath. You can focus on a part of your inner body, like your heart. When you're focusing on your body, I don't mean to focus on the dysfunction or the pain that's causing you the fear. I'm talking about focusing on the inner body. For instance, if you close your eyes and you don't move your feet at all, can you imagine your feet? Put your attention on your feet. Focus your attention on your feet. Can you sense that they're there? Can you sense that they exist? Even without looking at them, without moving them, without feeling them move, just knowing, can you feel the tingling or the sensation of your feet without having to see them or feel them? That's your inner body. So when you can put your attention on your inner body, that's a way to bring yourself to the present moment. You're no longer thinking about your thoughts. You're thinking about what you're focusing your attention on. The same thing goes for your breath. If you close your eyes and you take a deep breath in and imagine your breath either being a certain color or imagining it going up a straw, like when you suck from a straw, instead of with your mouth, you're going to be inhaling your breath, and imagine your breath going up your spinal cord as you're inhaling. You can view it as a certain color, and then imagining it from the base of your spinal cord going all the way up to the base of your head. And this is actually your energy centers, from your first energy center, which is your perineum, and imagine it going all the way up to your sixth energy center, which is your pineal gland. So as you're closing your eyes, just imagine your breath slowly bringing it up through your nose, imagining it going up, 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 and then stopping at the pineal gland, and then just holding your breath for a few seconds, and then slowly releasing your breath. We can actually practice through, it's called box breathing. If you inhale your breath for a count of 5 seconds, and then hold your breath for a count of 5 seconds, and then release your breath slowly for a count of 5 seconds, and continue to focus on doing that, you're then bringing your body into a state of relaxation, because you're focusing your attention on the present moment, on what's happening right now. And when you do that, you take your attention off of the thoughts that are causing you the fear, or the circumstance that's causing you that low vibration emotion. And instead, you're bringing yourself to the present moment and you're putting your attention on your body instead of your mind. It's when we bring our attention to the body that's a game changer. We can start to become more in tune to what our body is telling us about what's going on within our environment in our bodies. There's all kinds of sensations that we can experience that we might not even be aware of because we're constantly in our mind. So as we continue to tune in more to the body, so this is one way that you can start to practice getting yourself out of fight or flight. But before we even get to that point, I wanted to give you something that you can do when you become aware of it. The main action step I would like to invite you to do is simply to become aware. So every time you feel your body restricting, every time you feel your heart rate racing, or you notice your breath being shallow, you might even be shaking with anxiety or fear. These are all signs that you are in a state of fight or flight. And now that we know the damage and the destruction that it does to our bodies, because this isn't what it was designed for, we can do something different to heal ourselves. So for this week, I would love for you to share in the comments how often you are noticing yourself in a state of fight or flight and how things go for you as you practice bringing yourself into that relaxed state that turns on the parasympathetic nervous system. Okay, I look forward to hearing from you. Of course, if you have any questions, please comment below. And if you have any other topics or struggles that you're dealing with that you would like me to talk more about or to share with you about how I handled it, then please comment below, or you can feel free to send me a message and ask me anything that you'd like, and I'll be happy to share it in this video series. Okay, everyone, I'm going to post the link below of how you can work with me or find out more, and also how you can contact me if you'd like to send me an email. Okay, everyone, I hope you're having a beautiful day, and I hope you enjoy this video. Mwah! I love you all. Take care.